On our anniversary, I confronted my wife about the truth. Her response was shocking. "Where did you get this?" she asked, stunned. "I've got proof of your cheating, and you ask where I got it," I replied, frustration bubbling up. "Does it matter? Does it change the fact that you cheated on me?" She tried to justify herself. "It looks bad, and I admit we kissed, but it's not cheating. We were in full view of others," she defended. "That's your excuse? No explanation about who he is or why you were kissing him?" I snapped. "You think just because there was no sex, it's fine? Is this your idea of keeping our vows?" "Brian, you're overreacting," she said. "We were caught off guard. Making a big deal out of this won't help." "Not even his name?" I asked sarcastically. "Does his name matter? You're worried I'll fight him, and you think I'll let that happen?" She objected, but I wasn't listening anymore. "Thanks for your honesty," I said coldly. "You've made your choice. Now I'll make mine." I stormed upstairs to pack. "Wait, what are you doing?" she asked, confused. "Packing a suitcase," I replied curtly. "I can't take your lies. I need to leave before I do something I'll regret." "Don't be silly," she pleaded. "You wouldn't hurt me." "Until today, I thought you wouldn't cheat on me," I retorted. "But I guess we don't know each other." "It wasn't cheating," she argued. "Stop lying," I shot back. "You kissed him. How is that not cheating?" "I never cheated on you, Brian," she shouted, her voice rising. I threw another photo from that night in front of her. "What do you call this?" I demanded. "How did you get this?" she stammered. "Does it matter?" I asked. "Does knowing change the fact that you cheated and lied?" She dropped the pictures, sobbing, and tried to hug me. "Stay away," I growled. "I gave you a chance to be honest, but you didn't think I was worth the truth. I could have stayed for our son's sake, but now I can't. I'll only keep the phone for emergencies with Bobby," I added, "and I'll block you otherwise. Understand?" She nodded, but I walked out, furious and heartbroken. I checked into a motel, determined to take the weekend to think. If I divorced her, Bobby would grow up in a single-parent home, and I'd have to pay alimony and child support. I couldn't believe she hadn't apologized or explained herself. The loneliness of being without my wife and son weighed heavily on me, and I cried until I passed out. By the next day, the messages started coming in. Tracy had informed our friends of our issues. They urged me to meet and work things out. I was stunned that she shared everything with them, but didn't talk to me directly. I wasn't interested in her excuses. Cassidy, Tracy's best friend, tried to get me to meet them at her house. I suggested a steakhouse instead, thinking I could leave freely if things went south. They reluctantly agreed, and I went, hoping to understand why Tracy had done what she did. When I arrived, I noticed they had strategized. There was only one seat left next to Tracy. I stopped her before she could sit next to me. "If you don't mind, I'd rather sit at the far end of the table," I said. "If not, I'll sit elsewhere." Cassidy quickly agreed, and the dinner proceeded. Before anyone could speak, I handed out copies of the photo of Tracy kissing the mystery man. "I'm surprised you're also interested in Tracy and me working things out," I said. "She shared our personal issues with you all, but hasn't been honest with me. I'm done with the disrespect." Cassidy tried to speak, but I interrupted. "I want answers," I said. "Who is this man? Tracy won't tell me. Someone here must know." There was silence. No one spoke up. "Thank you for your time," I said. "I think I've heard enough. I'm leaving." Tracy called out, begging me to stay, but no one else spoke. It was clear whose side they were on. That night, I went to a fast food place before heading back to the motel. I returned home, thanking the babysitter Tracy had hired. I moved my personal things into the spare bedroom, installed locks on the doors to keep Tracy away, and spent time with Bobby. I bathed him and put him to bed. Around 10:30 p.m., Tracy returned home. She seemed relieved to see me and found me watching Bobby sleep. "I'm glad you're back," she said, trying to hug me. "No need to disturb him," I whispered, waving her off. "I'll make you something to eat," she offered. "I already ate," I replied. "But where have you been with your lover?" "I was at the steakhouse," I hinted. She sighed. "I'll talk, but only if you tell me his name. If not, there's nothing to discuss." "I can't give you his name," she said, almost pleading. "I just can't." "Then stay away from me," I shot back. "I'll stay in the spare bedroom until you're ready to give me the truth." She walked away, crying. A week passed, and Tracy and I barely spoke. She only communicated with Bobby. One evening, I came home to an unexpected scene. Tracy's friends were gathered in the kitchen. "Where's Bobby?" I asked, not wanting him around while the adults talked. "He's with the babysitter," Tracy explained, a hint of hesitation in her voice. "We didn't want to surprise you." It was clear they'd planned everything. I wasn't impressed. In the living room, Tracy introduced me to two new faces. One was Elliot, her lover. "Brian," Tracy began, "meet Elliot Franklin and his wife Gail. We thought it was time to introduce you. You mentioned wanting to meet him." I stiffened, keeping my hands at my sides. "Mr. Franklin," I said, ice in my voice. "You should call me Mr. Wilson. I don't think we're friends yet." Elliot extended his hand. "I hope we can at least be civil," he said, his tone smooth. "I'd like to talk about what happened between me and the woman you married." "Don't call her my wife," I shot back. "That title might not last much longer. I'm considering a divorce." Elliot didn't flinch. "I understand," he said, unfazed. "But I'd like to explain what happened with your wife." Elliot took a deep breath before speaking. "Look around, Mr. Wilson. These people, your wife included, are more than just attractive. They're confident, self-assured. You think it's a coincidence that we're closest to the ones we connect with most deeply? We've built something real, something that transcends traditional views. Monogamy is outdated. True love is about trust, understanding, and closeness. Take my wife, Gail. She's everything to me, and no man here, least of all you, will take her away. We've found that openness allows us to grow, share, and yes, to explore. We trust each other, and that makes us inseparable." Mr. Wilson's jaw tightened. "How nice for you and your wife, Mr. Franklin. But that doesn't change anything between me and the woman I married." Elliot was relentless. "But don't you see? There's so much more to be gained from this kind of trust and openness. Your marriage could evolve too. Why shut it down before even considering the possibilities?" Mr. Wilson's eyes flashed with anger. "Excuse me, but you just called every woman in this room, including my wife, a strumpet. You've twisted her morals so easily." Elliot's voice stayed calm. "I see the misunderstanding, Mr. Wilson. It's not one-sided. You and your wife are welcome to join us. You could be with anyone here if you wanted. But your reaction, well, it's made things harder for both of you." Turning to Tracy, Mr. Wilson's frustration bubbled over. "Is this true? You agreed to this without telling me first?" Tracy looked down, nodding. "I thought it could help us," she whispered. His disbelief deepened. "So one session with him makes you an expert?" Tracy hesitated. "You're a sweet lover, Brian, but sometimes I need something more." Elliot showed me that. A storm raged inside Mr. Wilson, but he held his composure. If you wanted to spice things up, why didn't you talk to me first, instead of jumping into bed with him? Tracy's voice pleaded. It wasn't like that. I never wanted to replace you. His anger flared again, but he controlled it. No, Tracy, this is a betrayal. And now I see it clearly. You're on their side, not mine. He turned to leave, but Tracy caught his arm. Brian, please, don't leave like this. We can fix this. We can talk. But he knew. It was over. No, Tracy. You've shown me where your loyalties lie. Locked in his room, Mr. Wilson sat in silence, plotting his next move. The betrayal stung, but he knew what he had to do. The next day, he contacted his little VP, Dan, and asked for a divorce lawyer. Dan was concerned, but Brian kept his voice steady. I'm sure you know someone, he said. That afternoon, he met with Beatrice Thorne, a no-nonsense divorce attorney. She laid out the terms: child support until Bobby turned 18, alimony for 3 to 5 years, and a looming custody battle. Brian was ready. His family was in pieces, but he was determined to move forward. Beatrice warned him about staying in the house during the process. She may retaliate. Are you prepared for her anger? She asked. Brian's response was unwavering. I can handle it. But Beatrice added one last warning. If you become intimate before the divorce is finalized, the timeline resets. You'll be back to square one. Brian absorbed the weight of the decision. I won't give in, he said, already sensing Tracy's attempts to lure him back. I'm sure of it. If she makes such a claim, would she need specifics? He asked. Yes, but it's still your word against hers. The judge may lean her way, Beatrice explained. Brian nodded, feeling slightly reassured. Thanks, Beatrice. You've been a huge help. When he got home, Tracy was already cooking dinner. He avoided the kitchen, grabbed his change of clothes, and went upstairs to shower, the silence a constant reminder of their separation under one roof. As he stepped out of the bathroom, Tracy was waiting in the hallway. Dinner's almost ready. Bobby's in his high chair. You smell nice, she said. Thanks. I'll be right down, he replied, avoiding her gaze. At dinner, Tracy opened the conversation. I want to explain about the phone from last night. Go ahead, Brian said, his voice measured. Elliot knew you were recording and said it wasn't fair to expose everyone to that risk. He suggested I delete the records in front of you, she explained. Why did they trust you to do that? He asked, a quiet edge in his voice. Because I gave them my word, Tracy answered. Understand what, Tracy? Didn't you promise to be faithful to me on our wedding day? Silence fell between them. I don't want you to think I'm on their side, Tracy said defensively. You acted like one of them last night, Brian pointed out. I don't understand, Brian, she said, confusion in her eyes. Don't you? If those men had grabbed you, would I have stood by silently? He challenged. What choice did I have? They could have taken you easily, she reasoned. Brian's voice softened, but only slightly. That's true, but I would have fought for you. I would have been on your side, not theirs. Last night, you were on theirs. Tracy's face twisted with confusion. I'm sorry you don't understand, Brian. Maybe your friends don't value fidelity, but I do, and now I don't trust you anymore. You've shown me you'll do whatever you want behind my back, Brian said, his anger building again. If it was so important, why didn't you talk to me first? I thought if I participated and saw the benefits, I could bring what I learned back to you. You'd see the value once you saw the improvements, she justified. So you and Elliot think you're enlightened? You think I need to be spoon-fed your superior knowledge? Brian spat. How lucky I am, huh? Let me show you what I've learned, Tracy urged, voice pleading. I adopted techniques from Elliot. I watched Gail. The goal is to improve our love life, not destroy it. Let me show you. Brian laughed bitterly. Every time I look at you, I cringe. I'm not interested in kissing you anytime soon. All you offer now is what used to be mine shared freely with other men. Her eyes narrowed. Only yours? You don't own me, Brian. I never have, and never will. You're right. I never claimed to own you. But I thought you were mine because you said you gave yourself to me. Now you've taken that back, given it to another man, Brian said quietly. You've broken something in me, Tracy, and I'm not sure it can be fixed. She started sobbing. That was the last conversation they had until Friday. Over the next few days, Brian immersed himself in caring for Bobby. Diapers, baths, anything to bond with his son. Meanwhile, he continued his research on Elliot and Gail Franklin. He found little. One, Elliot Franklin was listed as a homeless man arrested downtown, but it didn't match the man who had been with Tracy. Friday arrived, and Brian had Tracy served with divorce papers at 10 a.m. He was in a meeting, a few hours of corporate work, with lunch and contractor ads. If Tracy called, his secretary would confirm he was unavailable. When Brian returned to work, he saw Tracy's many messages. He called her back, and she answered quickly, her voice trembling with anger. It's about time. Getting served in front of my friends? Are you serious? She snapped. I told you it was nothing, Brian. When will you get that through your head? Why won't you talk to me? She demanded. Ryan's voice was calm and cold. You'll get your answer when you show up to court. That's when we'll talk. I hear your words, Tracy, but I don't believe you. You've already proven yourself to be a liar, I said, my voice resolute. Just sign the papers and let's get this over with. I'll never sign them. I won't accept a divorce. I'll fight you every step of the way, she vowed, determination in her voice. I may have lost you now, Brian, but I'll do whatever it takes to keep my family together. I'm sorry, Tracy, I said quietly, but I think you've lost me for good. I'm staying here with Bobby. We have nowhere else to go, she mumbled. You're right. Bobby is my whole world now. I don't want to be away from him, I replied firmly. That's why I'll stay here during the divorce. I won't get in your way. I don't need you to do my laundry, cook, or clean. You take care of your needs. I'll take care of mine. We'll both take care of Bobby. Just don't touch me. You disgust me now. We'll coexist until the divorce is final, but there will be no reconciliation. Her hope quickly turned into dismay. I heard you, Brian, but divorce is a long road. A lot can happen. I swear, I'll win you back, honey. I stood firm, unwavering. As long as you continue seeing your friends, there's no chance. I'm done socializing with them. If you ever bring one of your lovers into this house, there will be consequences. Do you understand? She hesitated for a moment, then nodded reluctantly. Of course, sweetheart. I'll cut ties with them if that's what it takes. Do you want me to quit my job and stay home with Bobby? No, it's too late for that, I answered bluntly. Besides, if you did, I'd just end up paying more child support after the divorce. Her smile faded, but she kept up the facade. We agreed on a temporary arrangement. Our communication was polite but minimal, focusing only on necessities. To my surprise, we followed my lawyer's suggestions without much resistance. I'd cover the rent. She'd handle the utilities. We separated all joint accounts, and each of us took responsibility for our own car payments and meals. Financial independence was surprisingly easy to establish. Tracy wasn't thrilled, but she accepted it. She tried engaging me in conversation, but I kept it polite and professional, never letting it go beyond the surface. One day, while rummaging through my desk drawer for socks, I noticed 3 photos of Tracy with her lover were missing. I searched the house, but they were nowhere to be found. The suspicion grew stronger when I noticed fine scratches on my door lock. It looked like she'd had a copy made. The next day, I replaced both locks and kept the new keys hidden. I wasn't about to let her have access to my room anymore. Her ongoing betrayal only reinforced my decision to divorce. A few months later, she started asking if we could do couple activities again. I always politely declined. Then I began receiving calls and messages from her friends, inviting me out or asking if I needed space. I blocked them all without responding. Mid-December, Tracy mentioned she'd be having dinner with a friend, Cassidy, on Saturdays, and asked if I could watch Bobby. I agreed on the condition that no one else entered the house. To occupy myself, I joined a bowling league, and I found that the attention Bobby got from the ladies was a nice distraction. One night, I came home later than Tracy, and when she asked where I'd been, I told her the truth. She asked to come along next time, but I replied, "I only leave the house when you do." It upset her, but at that point, I no longer cared to please her. She often asked how we could possibly reconcile if I refused to give her a chance. She still hadn't signed the divorce papers, which were supposed to take a year. 6 months later, my lawyer informed me that Tracy's lawyer had successfully requested 10 mandatory marriage counseling sessions. I had to attend and answer every question. I joked with my lawyer, asking if I could just repeat a simple sentence for every question, and he agreed as long as it remained relevant. Tracy's lawyer tried to paint me as violent and unstable, claiming she'd tried to reconcile and that my jealousy had destroyed our marriage. I remained calm, replying to every question with, "I don't want to stay married to a promiscuous woman." It frustrated both Tracy and the counselor, and after the 5th session, the therapist canceled the remaining ones, calling them unproductive. Months passed with little change. I spent my time bonding with Bobby. 4 days before the divorce hearing, Tracy moved out with Bobby. Then, I was served with a restraining order. Tracy reached out with some shocking news. "You know me better than that," I said, trying to stay composed. "I needed to hear it from you." My lawyer, B, said, "I'll fight for you, but we need evidence." "Has Tracy provided everything we need for the investigation?" "Yes, I have the details in a folder in my office," I replied. B told me to avoid contacting Tracy or Bobby until further notice, instructing me to hang up immediately if Tracy called. 2 days later, I came home to find Tracy sitting at the kitchen table. Her car wasn't there, meaning she must have arrived with someone else. "If you want to see Bobby again, you need to listen to me," she said. I kept my distance, staying calm. "You don't have to say anything, just listen," she continued. "I tried to talk you down, but Elliot convinced me to have a backup plan in case your lawyer objected. So, I made up a story about you hitting me. We both know you never touched me, but I needed full custody of Bobby. It gives me leverage. If you cancel the divorce and join our friends, I'll lift the restraining order, and we can pick up where we left off. Bobby won't grow up in a single-parent home. What do you say?" Her words stung, especially when she mentioned Bobby, but I stood firm. "Please leave for now." She smirked as she left, knowing she had leverage. Moments later, a shiny Lexus pulled up. Elliot was fully involved in her scheme. I had a lot to think about as I prepared for the divorce hearing. At court, Tracy approached me, seething. "You had your chance, you bastard. I'll destroy you in there." Your son will forget you and call another man father. I'll marry someone who truly trusts me. She spat in my face. I wiped it off calmly with a handkerchief before walking into the courtroom. Tracy was the first to testify, recounting her fabricated story about the alleged assaults. Her lawyer demanded custody, child support, and even jail time for me. My lawyer, B, remained composed. Once Tracy finished, B asked her a few crucial questions. When she swore under oath that her allegations were true, B simply replied, "No further questions, Your Honor." Next, B called Jim, a private investigator, to the stand. Jim presented evidence of Tracy's infidelity, 3 photos of her in bed with another man. He explained that the original copies were securely stored, and B entered them as evidence. Jim also revealed that Tracy had claimed she wanted to blame someone else for the abuse. By the end of the day, it was clear that my lawyer's strategy was working, and Tracy's lies were unraveling. The next day, we set up the hidden cameras. Jim explained the surveillance system, ensuring the chain of evidence was airtight. Tracy's lawyer objected, but Judge Feldman overruled it. When Jim testified, he confirmed that there were no incidents of violence during the dates Tracy had mentioned. In fact, he had audio of Tracy discussing her plan to falsely accuse me. Tracy's lawyer was speechless. The judge ruled that Tracy had perjured herself and awarded full custody of Bobby to me. Tracy would have visitation rights at my discretion. As for alimony, the judge set it at $11,000 per month for 42 months. The court also instructed me to move out, and Tracy was to return Bobby to me within 8 hours. Tracy broke down, realizing everything she had lost. I gave her the address of my new place and told her to bring Bobby the next day. Afterward, I surprised her with one last piece of news. "I'm suing your company for violating its non-fraternization policy," I said. "Ronald Hensley will be the main target. He's your manager, right?" Tracy looked pale. "I know about Ronald and his affairs," I continued, "and I'll make sure his wife and kids find out." Tracy begged me not to expose Ronald, but I remained resolute. "Bobby needs a mother, and you need to learn the consequences of your actions." A few weeks later, we settled the lawsuit, and I used the money to pay my child support and start building my dream home. Suddenly, I was the most eligible bachelor at work, but after everything I'd been through, I decided to focus on Bobby first. Finally, I was free,